Welcome to the part 2 of painting this beautiful 10 inches mandala. For those who have missed the first part, I am adding the link in the description box below, so feel free to check it out. Moving on with our mandala here, I started by creating 6 bud shaped swooshes using the rigger brush of size 1. I am going to create a lotus pattern here using the same brush which I used to create the buds. Now check this out. When I start the first layer of lotus petals, I use the same ring as the one where the inner bud ends. This is really important to maintain the symmetry of your lotus pattern. Now as you can see, I am doing the first layer of petals for all of my 6 buds, and then I will be moving on to the second layer. Now to give this lotus more open look, I am slightly pulling the starting point of all the petals. But you can completely skip this part if you want to. Your lotus will still come out beautiful if you follow the rest of the instructions. After completing the first layer, let's move on to the second layer of petals. And for the second layer, I am using a pink shade here. Now remember that for the second layer, you wanna make your petals slightly lower than your first layer to give it a nice distinction from the first layer of petals. Repeat the same process with all the 6 buds. Moving on to the third layer, I am using a red color shade here, and again the third layer of petals should also be slightly lower than the second layer to give it a nice distinction. So let's repeat the same process for all the 6 buds. Now for the last layer, we'll be using the sea glass shade. I really like how this stands out from the rest of the crowd because it's actually on the opposite side of the color wheel as the rest of the colors. Now once the lotus pattern is done, I am going to fill out these empty black spaces with the drop petal patterns. So I am using the larger end of this green dotting tool here to make the dot, and the smaller end of the same tool to kind of drag it. We will keep repeating these steps until we fill that entire black space. Now to finish the look of the lotus patterns, let's add one more dot to the lotuses. Now I also wanted to fill out the empty space within each of the buds, but this is completely optional. So if you want to skip it, you can skip it. But what I'm basically doing here is I'm adding a dot inside the empty space in each of the bud, and using the dotting tool, I'm just dragging it on the both of the sides. Now moving on to the next mandala element, I started by making 6 larger dots in the empty spaces between the lotus flowers, and then I will be walking the dots around it. After this, I am using a rigger brush here again, but this time this is a smaller size. This is size 2 by 0 rigger brush, and using white color, I am kind of sweeping that brush in a circular motion around my pattern. So let's do the same steps for all the 6 patterns here. Now I am going to add the second layer of brush stroke here using the yellow color. Once the second layer is done, for the third layer we are kind of doing it in the opposite direction. So we'll use orange color and we'll do the swipes in the opposite direction for all the 6 patterns. Now let's add some more swipes using the pink color, and then we'll be doing one more layer here with the red one. Now let's do the last layer of swipes using sea glass shade. Lastly, to fill up the empty space here, we will be making the drop petal pattern here again for all the empty spaces you can see. So once that is done, this is the complete finished look of our 10 inches mandala.